Boom, boom, baby. We are back for another great episode of The Color of Motion. I like to say, hey, stories come in all shades. And I highlight people of color and diverse backgrounds in the industry of motion graphics, animation, visual effects, cartoons, and comics. This space that, by now I'm just crazy about. So I want to welcome you to another great episode. My name is Don Terrell, and you know the drill. Hop into the comments, say hey, where you're tuning in from, so I give you the shout out that you so richly deserve. Also, please make sure that you hop on over to the Facebook group community, get plugged in, facebook.com/group/, the color of motion. Come join the family. We'd love to have you. Get engaged because there we share industry news, have great conversations, all kinds of fun. So I definitely don't want you to miss out on anything for sure. So make sure you hop on over there. Also, you can connect with me on all my other social channels there. I definitely want to hear from you, who you might want me to get on the show, what you think about the show. I'm always looking for feedback. So you can always connect with me on all my social channels there. So I definitely want to hear from you. Like I said, we are here each and every week, Saturday, 3 p.m. Central Standard Time, live to YouTube, the LinkedIn page, the Facebook group, and the website is where you can check out the show. But I do always kind of highly encourage everybody to hop on over to the YouTube channel, subscribe, hit the bell notification, comment, give a thumbs up, it helps the algorithm. There you can always check out all the other past great guests that we've had on the show. So hop on over to youtube.com and again, be part of, I always say be part of the family. It's a family thing. I love saying be a part of our family for sure. Also, you know, the store is open. Hop on over to the shop, pick you up some swag items. We have a lot of great shirts, hoodies, mugs, and we're constantly adding new things to it. I definitely, my goal is to see as many people walking around with color of motion gear as possible. So hop on over to colormotion.net/swag, pick you up something nice, you know, get you something great there. Only thing I ask is if you do, make sure that you shoot a pic of yourself, send it on over to me so that we can share on the show and share on the social channels. Wow, that was a tongue twister. Share on the social channels. Share on the social channels with you with the gear on. So definitely, if you pick you up something, shoot a picture of yourself and shoot it on over to me. We definitely want to see that and highlight that as well, for sure. So what else? Like I said, a lot of great stuff coming on. I'm super excited about my next guest. Been working to get him on for a while. So glad to be able to call him friend. So been super looking forward to that for sure. Mr. DeMille, as always, I appreciate you tuning in, brother, and checking out the show for sure. And super excited to kind of get this episode kicked off. Mr. Ken, you always have these long ones for sure. But always glad, brother, when you show up and comment for sure. You are such a suave, debonair, sophisticated gentleman, a stellar scholarly. I appreciate that, kid, for sure. And as always, I appreciate you supporting the show. That's the main thing. Really, these loyal fans and these loyal viewers that come onto the show, it really helped to make the show what it is so that I can help continue to make it grow for sure. So it's people like you that really do kind of make the show. So along with my guests and friends that come on. So I appreciate that. What else? I always feel like I want to get through the little housekeeping, but I do try and be mindful of getting through stuff as well. So I think I've got everything. So I think we can kind of pretty much get this show kind of kicked off. So looking forward, Mr. EU. Appreciate you, brother, for chiming in and tuning in. He's a great super guest last week. So appreciate you stopping by for sure. Over in Azerbaijan, we're international. So that's what I love about this show. We are an international show for sure. Mr. Dewan, I appreciate you. No parking. Good afternoon to you. Happy Saturday. Like I said, I hope everybody is having a great weekend and a great day so far. So I am super excited to get this episode kicked off. So without further ado, let's rock and roll, baby. Yes, yes, yes. We are back. We are back. So super excited about getting this next guest on. Like I said, been working to get him on for a while. So been following his work. Been super amazed by it. So I'm so glad to finally get a chance to have my friend on and sit down and chop it up. We were laughing a little before before the show about some things, and we're going to dive into those as well. But again, like I said, as I always like to say, this is a kind of an interactive show. So I definitely want to see your comments, ask your questions, and just be engaged in the show because, like I said, it helps really let me know that the show is really interactive and really helpful to people. So without further ado, my next guest is the director and co-founder of Magic Carpet Studios. He is also the director of the upcoming 2D feature-length adaptation of Cyprian Ekwensi's The Passport of Mallam Ilia. Hope I pronounced that right. I'm pretty sure he'll let me know if I didn't. But and the creator of the upcoming TV series Meet the Igwes. He is a graduate of North America University, Benin Republic, where he studied mass communication, graduating in 2016 with honors. He was recruited to Imaginarium, where he was an illustrator and graphic designer for the company before making the transition into animation and co founding Magic Carpet Studios in 2017. His animated shorts have been nominated in various international film festivals and has won several awards. Ooh, excuse me. Won several awards, including the innovative category at the first UN Sustainable Development Goals Action Awards in Germany, the Constantine Gold Choice Award, RTF Award, and more. Magic Carpet Studios has been engaged in training animators within and outside Africa through its Magic Lab training program in the past 5 years. He occasionally speaks at industry events and boot camps throughout Nigeria. Oh, man. Throughout Nigeria and beyond, and is an active supporter of African arts and animation. And another thing we share in common is the same birth date, September 2nd. We're both September 2nd kids. So without further ado, everybody, please help me welcome my very special guest and friend, Mr. Chekwube Okonkwo. Chekwube, so excited about having you on. And like I said, we were joking, which isn't really kind of funny. We were just joking about. I hope you have enough power to make it through this interview. Which brings me a lot to the point that and we had this conversation just before the show, and I've had this conversation with a lot of African creators about the issue of power and energy, and the fact that just over here we kind of take it for granted that power is just available at all times when that's not so the case over in some areas of Africa. But again, thank you so much for being on the show. I'm super excited. Um, like I said, I always like to start off with what were some of the animations that you kind of grew up with as you were younger? What were some of the types of animations that you enjoyed watching?
Well, I actually, first and foremost, I want to thank you for this opportunity for, reaching out to me. And, this is a privilege and this is, really good because I love to, also share more about the African animation industry and everything. So, in terms of animation, I grew up watching um, the usual Tom and Jerry, Dexter's Lab, and all of that. I didn't really watch so much. For me, I was, watching, diving into documentaries, and I was just really a curious kid. And my brother would bring a lot of comic books, you know, back home then, and he would, show me different drawing style because as of the time I was just exploring African arts, African sculpting, and I was doing traditional painting. So my brother would bring comic books and tell me about caricature type drawings and different styles, different painting techniques. And for me, I was curious about it, and then I started studying comic books, Marvel comics, and I started watching a lot more animation, the Hanna-Barbera
Yeah,
animation, Animaniacs, and the rest of them. And for me, I enjoyed it, and I just kind of that wasn't really my introduction to animation. My introduction to animation was, you know, having this really big textbook in primary school, and then I would doodle at the edge of the textbook, at the tip of the textbook, and they'll flip it,
yeah,
right? Yeah, for me, I had this, really big textbook. Then I would just do a couple of, doodles, and I would draw stick figures. And I had that, and I misplaced that book, and I cried. And at the point in time, I never really saw the possibility of even exploring animation. And for me, that was my betting place. I went back, to where I misplaced the book, and I was looking for it. I couldn't find it for some reason, and I just love to have that book and just love to flip around it and just see images move and everything. So I think that was my introduction to animation without even realizing it. Then watching Tom and Jerry and the rest of them
yeah,
kind of even
yeah.
opened my eyes a lot for it.
Well, it's interesting, and I kind of want to hear your take on it. And I don't think you think so much about. I don't think you would think so much about it when you were kind of younger. Um, watching the animations that you did, like Tom and Jerry, and more the Western, the animations that were
Yeah.
coming out of the West. But were you more when I guess did you start getting conscious? of that normally or naturally you don't, or I don't know, maybe you can correct me on it, but you didn't watch, say, African style or animations that were coming from the country. When did that kind of become conscious to you that, hey, I'm not seeing animations coming from the country about, our culture or anything like that, or just even animations coming out of this country. Everything that we saw animation wise was kind of coming from, like I said, Disney or Warner Brothers or studios that were over here.
Yeah, I came to that realization when I was, watching more. I think it was when I saw X-Men,
Hmm.
X-Men Evolution, and then I fell in love with this character, Spike, because it was the only black character.
Yeah.
And for me, I don't know the reason why I like Spike. And I was like, what? And then for Justice League, I tilted more to Green Lantern, you know. And I think for me, I started coming to this. I wasn't even thinking about color or anything, but it just felt like these are the characters I could relate to and everything. And back then we had this animation by UNICEF about this particular girl character that she's trying to, do stuff for our community and stuff like that. So that was the best we got at the moment. I've actually forgotten the animation. Then I saw Kirikou. Kirikou felt different. It didn't feel like the thing that, we're used to watching. So I grew up to loving Kirikou, right? Because even as a kid, it felt really weird because at this point in time, we've consumed, a lot of Western animation and everything. So even when we, see African content, it feels, a lot different to us. And for me, that was the betting place. And I started creating comic book and I started drawing more black characters because it was important for me to tell our story. I grew up reading a lot of books, literature books. I read a lot of African writer series from Chinua Achebe, Things Fall Apart, to Chimamanda Adichie's book, and I even went as far as exploring other books like Richard Wright and all this stuff. So when I look at the depiction of black characters. I want to see how that can find its way into storytelling. And part of the ways I started doing this was, trying to make comic books and, doing more epic stories. And I was doing this at the time in school, and everybody was really loving it and coming to my seat to take a read of the book. And I was having my seniors in school come to my classroom and beg me for the comic book and all that stuff. And at that point in time, I realized that I had something different. So we had this point in Nigeria where we have the Super Striker comic book. It's now a YouTube series. So we had this black lead character, Shed, called Shegun. And for Nigerians, I think everybody really, really loved, the way that it's a comic book about soccer, and it was the first of its kind. It's different, and for me, that encouraged me and made me believe that this is possible here. At this point in time, I've never really imagined that I would be, creating animation. I've always wondered, like, what does art really hold for me at the
Yeah.
end of the day? I just like creating works and doing portraiture. And once in a while, I do comic book. I never really got a comic gig. I was just doing it for the love of it. And yeah,
So was that, like I said, you kind of, like you said, kind of started, as I am a illustrator graphic designer. Was that a big transition, or just not so much of a big transition moving into animation when you move from that?
so my story is kind of interesting because I didn't plan out to be a graphic designer. Even in my CV, I had studied mass communication, and my dad actually even pushed me to study that. I didn't really want. I want to study fine arts, but my dad's like, "Okay, checks, you already have that. I think you try something else." And at the time in school, I was, spending most of my time with theater folks and creating, theater stage plays and short films. and all of that. And then I met the CEO of Magic Carpet, Ferdinand Adimefe, and I shared one of my screenplays with him. He really liked the idea, and he told me to come join the Imaginarium team as a graphic artist. He felt that okay, for the fact that I could draw, also maybe there's a possibility that I could also do graphics. But I was really failing at graphics design. And instead of me to maybe download the font, I would, traditionally create the font on Photoshop.
Oh, smart.
Yeah, so I was doing a lot of stuff traditionally, and it was doing corporate designs. But when I submitted to my CEO, he'd be like, "This is too deep, man. We can't use this." Right? And and that was the story. And at some point in time, they had to let me go. I think he called me to the balcony one time, and he told me that you know what, I think you should probably look at other things. I don't think graphic design
It's
is
your
your
man.
calling. I think you're more of a film guy. And he said, okay, you know what? Probably just apply to one of these animation, programs, because we don't really, teach animation. Just see which studio you can maybe pair with, or who can teach you animation. And then I told him that, okay, you know what? I'm gonna learn animation, and then I'm gonna come back to you. I'm gonna make a pitch. And then I took like some time off, and then I started learning. I started reaching out to people, but it felt really difficult, and most people really turned me down. And even when I offered money, they didn't really teach me much
Yeah.
and everything. So I realized that I had to learn this stuff myself. And at this point in time, my mom, my parents didn't realize that I've quit my job, and I was, jumping from one cyber internet cafe to the next, just trying to see if I can get extra time to download some, to just watch some YouTube videos on how, this whole animation thing works. So I was animating for my life pretty much, and because I was trying to get back to my job, right? So I called up Freddie, and I told him that you know what, I have a pitch for you. I have material that I think you might be interested in, because I felt like the only way to really learn animation is to jump on a project to get a story. So I prepared a synopsis, and then I prepared like a pitch document. At this point in time, I don't know how to animate Jack, and the only thing I could do is just to make a character eye blink. That just take 2 frames only, man. So I told him that I've I've killed I've killed it, and I know how to animate. And he believed me. And he said, "Okay, come, let's do a pitch."
What software were you using to do that?
I was using Adobe Flash at the point in time.
Oh, Flash. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, I was doing Flash animation.
Yeah. Sometimes you
So
got to kind of just bluff your way into things. You just and see, let the chips fall where they may, for sure.
yeah,
Oh man.
yeah. So
Was that? No, go ahead.
yeah, you could go carry on.
Nah. Well, I was gonna say, your dad wanted you to kind of do the mass, communication route. Um, is that kind of um a issue over here? I know, or over there, because I know, like here, some parents, they think like starving artists, how you gonna make a living type of thing. So they always are encouraging. Some have their parents really behind them, but a lot of parents, especially like from certain parts, and mine was kind of the same way. While she encouraged and saw that I had talent, sometimes have a hard time figuring out how you're gonna make a living doing drawing, when they just see it as doodling or this and that type of thing. But is that a common thing over there of having to, especially since the industry isn't like big as it is over here, having to convince parents that this is a viable way of making a living? Or even did you have it in your mind that when you, as you were getting into animation, the industry isn't big over there, but I'd still be able to make a living, whether it's
Yeah.
doing work for a studio outside of
Yeah.
Africa or not.
Yeah. So at this point in time, I've done everything I could do. I was really very, very into art. I had this, I've converted my, there's this playground we even had as kids. I converted the entire place to like an art studio, having a lot of artworks hang around, right? So my dad back then would, bring in the visitors and say, "Okay, look at what my son is doing." So he was really proud of what I was doing. It's not as if he wasn't, but he wanted me to try out something else because there was no reference point at the time. Every artist was either doing maybe a traditional painting, traditional works that wasn't really fetching any money. It was maybe a roadside artist
Yeah,
and everything. And for me, it was like looking at that and going to school every day and seeing roadside artists. I just realized that there might not be any hope for me. Like, okay, I might end up this way too, and it's pretty sad. And for me, it was just mostly about the love. I honestly never thought I would even get this far. I know that I would always do art, but I never, saw myself even being an animator or anything. I just knew that all I had was the drive, the passion, and I just want to make stuff.
yeah, yeah. Well, when did it? At what point during that process of doing animation and learning animation, did it click with you that okay, as long as I get good stories and good animations, it's still a great industry. Even though, like I said, I think, and it may be better now that you're starting to see other studios and the industry in Africa as a whole. It really is kind of growing, and you got studios over here such as Disney partnering with studios over there to create content. At what point did you kind of start to see that okay, this is not like a roadside type of thing where you're just going to be doing art on the road, and that this is something that really could could grow into something.
Okay. So, I didn't finish my story the last time.
Okay,
So after I made the pitch to Freddie, I think that was when I came to the realization. I made the pitch to the company and everybody really liked it. So I pitched Magic Carpet Studio, right? And then I closed it up with one character just blinking this way. And everybody carried me, and they were like, "Wow, we're gonna make a feature film. We're gonna make a feature film." Everybody was super excited, and deep in my heart, I knew that I kind of lied, but deep in my mind, I know that I can do it, right? So Fedi hired, my CEO hired, a script writer, was writing a script for a popular TV program, and we didn't even have a proper pipeline, or how we were to create this stuff, and I just jumped right in. He was writing it page for page, and then he handed me the first page, and I just jumped right in, started animating it, start figuring it out. So it was in the process of figuring it out. I started making more research. I started watching more documentaries of guys that have explored this part before, and then when I create a sequence or a short, and I share with the entire team of the progress I've made, they all loved it, and that reaction kept me going. The sequence should be on YouTube. Meet the Igwes. That was my first ever animation. Everything you see there is the first time. But for me, that kind of bets everything. And so many animators, even in Nigeria, would look back to that project today and say, "This helped me in my career. Seeing this, gave me hope and everything." I didn't realize that I was helping other people, and then I started reaching out to schools, universities, and I started, bringing in guys into the team, and seeing how I can expand the studio beyond just the 2D animation. Trying to get guys doing 3D animation as well, and also cutout animation, right? So the team got bigger. I was like an apostle for animation because I was jumping from one university to the other and trying to, pitch, trying my best to bring them into the studio and everything.
Yeah.
And then,
Yeah.
7 years later, this is us.
Wow. Amazing. Amazing. Again, everybody just jumping on. We're having an amazing conversation. Uh, Dwan, I saw your comment. Please let me know that how I sound. If the audio is low, if it's good now, please let me know. Mr. Dwan, welcome, Chekwube. He's enjoying it for sure. And I hope everybody's enjoying this as well. Like I said, we're having a great conversation with my friend Chekwube from Lagos. Miss Amanda, appreciate you tuning in there for sure. As always, says hey. Uh, and we've had this, like I said, we kind of jokingly talked about it before uh, before the episode. And I'm always curious when I talk to creators in other continents and countries, just of the things that we over here kind of take for granted. Um, was and I always find it interesting just the challenges of what you have to deal with, and like I said, we were kind of jokingly talking about it before the show of just the issue of power and energy. Was that I mean, for you, what's kind of been the biggest challenge as far as being a content creator? Is that the biggest challenge of creating content over there? Just the things that you kind of have to work through and work around that we over here kind of take for granted?
Yeah, power is one of them. Because we have, very, we have a power situation here, and sometimes, that take out from our work time, and it affects deliverable too in the studio. And what we are getting to do is, to get like a generator to power our systems and all that stuff. And then there are other issues too that um, we have, being a creative here. It's also issue of skill, right? Professionalism to really get someone that have studied animation and really know what it's talking about can be difficult, and that what we go through here. So sometimes you might realize that some creators might spend more time, being a generalist and just learning all the crafts, and then dishing it all out, and so it's tough, right? But
Yeah,
I think looking at the brighter side of it, it's also what makes us unique and makes us even stronger,
yeah,
right? Because even irrespective of the odds, we're still we're still true to it, right? We have so many hold said like so many odds. Part of them could be, investors, right? Getting investors to fund projects, and there's no creative funds here to really access, to get your project out and everything, and you might end up carrying all that burden and
yeah,
all that load yourself, to the end. And sometimes juggling between projects and your passion project, client's project and your passion project could really be tough. And then, sometimes you have to take all that money and pour into the projects you're working on, and that could, slow down, production. So it's quite tough being a creative, but yeah, we would. The good part of it is that if it's going to be done for the first time here, the whole world is going to know about it. And that's the advantage, right?
yeah,
So you just have to see how you pass that, and if you can make it in late, you can make it anywhere in the world. That's what I believe.
yeah. No, for sure, for sure. Um, what was like you said, you started Magic Carpet Studios. Is there any what's the origin of the name of Magic Carpet? Was there a reason that you chose Magic Carpet? Did it have any significant meaning for you?
Okay, so at the time I was teaching kids, and in church, and have these carpets. All the kids would sit around, and then I would teach them and share some stuff with them. So at the point in time when Freddie was asking me for a name, I came up with several names, very, very weird names. And he was like, no, it doesn't work. And then, at that moment, you occurred to me that, okay, what about like something like a playground where people could just be themselves and create, like, okay, like a magic carpet. And then I thought about it. I'm like, okay, magic carpet. But at this point in time, the whole Disney Aladdin situation it didn't even occur to me, right? Until until I was done with the montage, and people are saying, okay, just like some Aladdin type, like no, it has
Yeah.
nothing to do with Aladdin carpet, right? Because when you look at that opening montage, it has the original opening montage has the voice of those kids I was training at the point in time. I kind of added the reverb sound to it. So it had all those kids who were just playing around and I just recorded their voice. And that's what we use as the montage, right? So at the point in time, Aladdin and the, the whole magic carpet didn't occur to me. And what stayed true in my head was just that playground. And then I wanted to take it to the sky and just have the carpet fly and all that stuff. Yeah.
Nice, nice. And we're gonna take a look, like I said, at some of Chikube's, the work that's coming out of Magic Carpet and a reel in a little bit here. But I definitely, like I said, I think what caught my eye when I first saw you, and we're gonna talk a little bit about SIP. You know, the animation that you did because that really kind of caught my eye on it. But some of the what you've done obviously has, garnered some attention. Wars that you've done. How was your kind of reaction when all that kind of started, happening with the work that you were creating, considering, how you started and just the journey up to that point so far? How has it been so far with just the reactions of the awards that you've done and the award shows that you've gone, festivals and things that you've gone to?
Yeah, it's been amazing. It's been beautiful. Getting all that feedback from people and fans and viewers sending me messages. It's been beautiful. But one thing again is I have kind of lived through it. So in a sense, at that point in time when I'm creating these works, I've seen it in my head and I've wrapped it up. I've concluded, and then I'm moving to the next. Right? So yes, it's good, that we get all that feedback. It helps, but I'm also always onto the next work, always onto the next work.
Yeah,
And for me, that's what really get me excited. The gift to imagine a new project, a new idea, a new art exploration is what really get me going, and what really get me excited. So I just have to just let it all out,
yeah, yeah.
right? And if I love it, I believe that if I love it well enough, people will definitely love it.
Yeah, yeah, no, for
Yeah.
sure. I think that's the kind of the crux of everything is does it resonate with you and does it have something that's universally appealing that everybody can kind of relate to, for sure. And like I said, definitely some good work. Are you encouraged, or what are your thoughts with how you're seeing the industry overall as far as the continent starting to grow? Because like we were talking about earlier, now you're starting to see, companies such as Disney partnering, with, companies there and really, starting to create content, that is indicative of where you're coming from, to give us stories. I mean, how are your thoughts about what you're starting to see now start to come from the country or the continent?
I think it's beautiful. I think our stories, ever since Wakanda, I think our stories have gained more global attention, and everybody wants to really, tap into the African storytelling. not necessarily tapping into the African market. I don't know if they're tapping into the African market or tapping into African storytelling, right? Because one thing again to look at is that, the market for animation, is still developing here. And you might not make as much money as you would in
Yeah.
maybe in Asia, in Japan, or in Europe, right? So I think everyone is tapping into African story, and what this is doing is that you know a lot of African creators are being featured, and everybody wants to partner with African creators, and it's a beautiful thing because yes, there is hope for the younger ones coming up there, but there's something it does, and that is that's that whole thing of partnership where people come together. Africans will come together and create a project that is authentically theirs. You know, it's altering our own animation history, right? What this is doing is kind of tearing down our own animation history because
Yeah.
we need to do it first. You know, we need to do it first and explore it, but people need to come together. Creative needs to come together under one umbrella and create and go through the process of family and bonding. And if you look at companies like Pixar, that was the backbone from John Lasseter and Steve Jobs. They had there's this force that comes with creativity when people come together,
Yeah.
to create. So right now, African artists are getting a lot of exposures, which is good. And then the younger ones are, aspiring to also do that for bigger studios and, other streaming platforms, and, might not fancy the idea of working or partnering with a studio, a local studio.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, now,
Yeah. So,
no, go ahead and finish.
yeah. So, if you look at that, you would see, the beautiful side, and then you see the other, twisted side
Yeah.
of it. Because, there was a saying, oh, Disney's coming. There was that saying, I think 2 years ago, Disney's coming, and these companies are coming, and they'll take the key guys away from us and everything. It's a beautiful thing that Disney, is taking our IPs and you know, boosting them up and bringing them, presenting them to the global audience. But I think sometimes what's more beautiful is having creative come together and believing that we can do this ourselves. And if you look at the culture of the anime, Japan, how they're able to come up with a style that is authentically theirs. Anime, when you watch it anywhere, their shows are doing the numbers. We're seeing, Suzume that came out, early this month. It's doing grossing over 200 million billion, in the market. So, looking at all this, we need to have our own, origin story. And yes, there are other ways that you know these bigger studios or streaming platform can come and help. Because that's the only way you have something new.
Yeah.
European animation is different from African animation needs to be African in the way it's supposed to be. Because looking at guys that have done it before us, traditional artists, looking at their work, their sculptural pieces, there was something unique about that. And we want to keep that. Every tribe, every culture have its own art piece,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And it's not something that a foreign studio can really help us achieve. It's something that we need to go back to be able to birth.
Yeah.
And that's what we are doing in our project, the Passport of Mallam Ilia, the feature film. There's this veteran, Bruce Onobrakwe. He's about 90 years plus. You could probably Google him. He's a legend and everything. And we're partnering with him to make this animated piece. And what he's contributing, his own idea, his own thinking of art is very advanced and sophisticated, different from what we have, right? And we are looking at exploring all of that to bring into modern day animation. And I think that's something new that African is bringing, not what is already existing. And having some bunch of black characters. That's not what makes it African animation,
Yeah.
right? So it
Yeah.
needs to speak loudly to African art.
Yeah. And and it's funny because you know, and I was gonna speak on this, and I may do a video on it a little later on. But I am definitely working to try and get Keith White and Rio Sears. They just finished up Afro Animation Summit for anybody that may have checked it out, been to it, or went to it. But it was interesting, um, you know, listening to some of the panels, and not even just a specific Africa thing, but just over here it seems like everybody is rushing, I guess, to get to these studios, um, into these few studios. Really, the five major ones everybody wants to work for: DreamWorks, Sony, Pixar. They're all really rushing to get into these major studios, as to controlling their own IPs and own stories. Um, and I think, like I said, stories are universal, but coming from that perspective, is that kind of the thing that worries you, that creators over there are their goal is to get into Disney or to get into these big studios, as opposed to, like you said, building studios and building the infrastructure up there, so that you have this base of your own that can partner on an equal kind of level with Disney, and work with some of these other companies on an equal kind of level, as opposed to like I said, them just coming over there to get stories that aren't necessarily going to get pushed or shown to the the continent of Africa itself. Is that something that, like I said,
Yeah,
worries you, or you think about, that this is something almost kind of like teach us how to fish, as opposed to feeding us fish, type of thing, and we can fish for
yeah,
ourselves and build for ourselves, so that we are on this kind of same level, field of
yeah,
creating.
yeah, yeah. It's hard to get your story across. Most of the times, your story either gets reworked, and they touch it up a bit and everything. But that doesn't help. That doesn't do the world any good in terms of animation, because if you look at what the Japs actually bring into the table, watching animation like Spirited Away, My Neighbor Totoro, the storylines sometimes, the story arcs sometimes differs in a very strange way, and you don't really know what you're moved by. And if you look at European animation, they all have it all figured out. You can almost guess that, okay, this is what will happen, and the whole world cannot function under that structure of
Yeah,
storytelling, right? African has its own way of telling stories, and it's one thing to help us, with funds and partnership, and it's one thing to you know just tap into the global markets, tap into that's black market, and just make a black another black story with a black character, and then use that just for the marketing purpose of it, not really trying to, because you're not doing yourself any good, doesn't really trying to harness into our storytelling or our artwork, which I think eventually we all come back. It's like a circle. We all come back to that circle to say, okay, let's come back to our roots. Let's look at what really is, because what is the identity of African art?
yeah,
Because trust me, we are very artistic people. Africans are very artistic. History has shown that we are very artistic. So we
yeah,
have a lot to bring to the table. We have a lot to bring to the table. And yes, I think Netflix has also done a good job by doing a lot of trainings for some studios and for some freelancers,
yeah,
which
yeah.
is beautiful. This kind of partnership helps.
And I think that's, like I said, I think that's a great thing. I guess, unfortunately, the dynamics of any business is, the bottom line is does it make money? Will it universally make money? And I guess they're thinking from the point of view of at least the studios over here. Will it resonate and will it make money outside? Because they had that same question when Black Panther came out. You know, will it make money in other places? You know, will it make?
Yeah,
Will it have the impact and make dollars in other places, and especially places that may not have the, the economic dollars that which, like I said, I think that's maybe kind of a slight misnomer because we have this misperception about Africa as a whole. I think there's a lot of wealth
yeah,
within Africa, but will that make money over there? And will the story, will the animation really generate the dollars that they're going to put into it outside of the country that may be creating it?
yeah,
So that's their, I guess, kind of their thinking on the projects that they do kind of back or this and that. Like, um, I'm pretty sure with geez, what's the name of it?
so so if you look at it, I think the world is hungry for something new. Animation is changing. If we look at it from a different perspective, ever since Into the Spider-Verse, we've had this fusion, this blend of 2D and 3D, and this toon shader technique. Everybody's trying to tap into, right? And every studio is moving towards that direction. If you look at the animations that are coming now and the one that have actually been released, your Puss in Boots, the Arcane, and the rest of them, all have that style. So in terms of style, the world is hungry for a new style. We've seen that Into the Spider-Verse. That was the first time that, we're really seeing a black hero that's cool in 3D, right? And he's taking the lead and he has that hip hop vibe. He has all that thing, that black excellence was actually at the top notch, of it. So we have a lot of styles here to tap into, African styles. Just breeze into one of the galleries, you see a lot that have not yet been harnessed.
Yeah,
And and trust me, I think that's what the world is looking at. If you look at the success we've made with Afro beats, and how in as much as the world don't really understand what Burna Boy might be saying, or some of these artists might be saying, they still vibe to the music and they still enjoy the music. And that's the new place the art is actually tilting into, the world haven't really explored. And then in terms of animation, we've been able to do that on the music side. And then in animation, we need to be able to do that. It's taking our IPs and developing them, yourself. It's about partnerships, with studios, right? So
yeah, yeah. I mean,
and
and so
yeah,
but kind of, I guess, like I said, and I'm looking from it from, I guess, a, a business perspective, and I'm going to play the devil's advocate here in a sense of if they're
yeah,
going to invest millions of dollars into something, which was kind of the theme I kind of picked up um, watching some of the panels and some of the people talk at the Afro Animation Summit, is they're they're wanting it to be a universal story, even if it's wrapped within the context of African culture. That's the average person can understand or relate to, as far as the theme of what the animation is about. Um, before they, I guess, invest in the money of doing it, as opposed to something that's going to be strictly understood by you know people over in Africa or people in different areas. Their one, like I said, I guess their thought is, can people globally um, relate to the story, even though there are cultural references, like with the Spider Verse. even though it's a Brooklyn kid that's, like I said, half black and half Latino, there was some element about it that, you know, you related to, even as an African or even as, somebody over in Asia, outside of the main, outside of the style of how it was done or how it was created. Was there something that you connected with as a character, as a story with Miles, that you could understand, like I said, regardless of whether he was black or white, or even the fact that he was Latino and half Latino and black? It was there something that, when you watched it, outside of the style of it, that you resonated with Miles on? And I guess that's what they're thinking of when, can this land on people outside, which I guess is why you hammer home the point of story. And as a story, there are certain arcs that we all can relate to, in the things that we're going through. Can the things that your character is going through be relatable to people that aren't necessarily living in Africa, or aren't necessarily living in Asia, or wherever the theme of who's creating it is from? Like anime. There are things that, like, when you watch anime, you love the style. Um, you may not necessarily get the small nuances or understand the small nuances that go within the character, but there's something about the story that you relate to. Is that something that you're conscious of, or think you should even be conscious of? Because, like I said, you as a creator over in Africa, you're not just wanting, while you are wanting the people within the continent to enjoy it, love it, support it, you're still wanting people outside of that to resonate with what the story that you're trying to tell. Is that something that you're keeping conscious of when you're creating things? Even though, like I said, you're making nuance, you're making references to the clothing, the culture, the way you talk, and the way you move, just still within that context of having the characteristics, or just the situations that the character may go through, something that's relatable that I can relate to, even though I don't,
Yeah,
understand the small nuances of the culture.
yeah. Someone said that there are only seven stories in the world, right? You know, there's stories about love, stories about revenge, vengeance, stories about, you know, gangsterism and all that stuff. So, you know, we know these themes, right? It's always going to revolve around these themes, stories. There's no way that we can, you know, go alien to these things. 'Cause at the end of the day, we are humans, right? And we're all having our human experience. You know, when the colonial masters came to Africa, you know, they saw these sculptural pieces. They didn't understand it, but they loved it, right? And that's the same thing we see with anime. At first, you know, looking at Astro Boy was one of the earliest black and white, you know, anime that was released. It felt different because, you know, the eyes was big and the jaws were pointy, and everybody, you know, started following that trend in Japan, and somehow it became a signature style, and we all loved it, and you know, we all celebrate their martial arts. Even when it comes to live action films, we all celebrate, you know, what they bring to cinema. Their contribution to cinema was, you know, martial arts, right? Looking at the Jet Li action, we loved that. And even we see how Hollywood actually borrowed from that element and started, you know, seeing how they can fuse in martial arts into their own works too, right? So we know that, you know, Hollywood is, you know, like the king of showbiz, right? But there's something about, you know, allowing other people share their own point of view from how they understand it, right? Because we're all having a human experience, and at the end of the day, we all have, you know, kids. We all have our own offspring, and we have things we want to tell them. You know, we don't have anything. You know, film is one of the books that we have. You know, libraries that we can store. We can store data. We can share moments, right? So this is what we want to do. We want to be able to preserve those moments, for generations to come. We want to be able to make our own mark and contribution to cinema. And for me, that is actually important because, maybe 100 years from now, we'll be looking at this whole thing and asking the question like, okay, what really is the birth of African animation? What is that signature of African animation? How do you tell, apart from a black character, having, apart from skin color, because it goes way beyond skin color.
Yeah. Yeah.
These days, you can have a black character, and still, it's still not an African story, right?
Yeah.
So what we are trying to do is, tell it from our own perspective and give us a chance to tell it from our own perspective in the way we understand it. Leave that to the world to understand. The people, your viewers are not dumb.
Yeah.
They would grow into it. We saw what Bollywood did with live action, how
Yeah.
they try
Yeah.
to sing, in every scene and every stuff. At some point, we were exhausted, but we got to appreciate it for it. Like, okay, that's who they are, and it doesn't mean that you don't enjoy their films,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So we want to be able to do the same thing, for animation, and for us, if it's important that this origin is important because that's what really defines everything going forward. So don't cut off this origin. It's important. This is our formative, season. Allow us to go through that formative season to find ourselves, to have our signature, to explore our art, to make our mistakes,
Yeah.
till we come to our own. So it's
Yeah.
it's really important.
Well, I mean, obviously, with that, it's going to take, like you said, not only studios growing there, but just educational places like universities. Because as it is now, somebody that's over there that's wanting to learn animation or really dive deep into animation, more than likely is either going to have to jump online and learn it or move to another country such as France or England or over here or Canada to really get that, like you said, kind of high level professional learning to really learn the process and the pipeline of how to make a good animated movie or animated project. Do you see that as obviously something else that's going to have to be built up? Just the educational structure
Yeah,
of having universities there and having schools there and qualified
yeah,
teachers
yeah,
there.
yeah. So one of the things we've been doing, we have this Magic Lab program where we train, every year. Right now, we have trained like over 200, you know, staffs, and half of that number, can brag to be animators, and we've hired a couple, and some of them are in our contract, either contract staffs with us and still work with us. Right. Last year we had a training with UN where we trained about 30 animators from around Africa, from different countries, some French speaking countries, Francophone speaking countries. And I was fortunate to be teaching. And it was difficult for me because I had to have a translator, and it was like 2 weeks intense animation training. Until date, we still follow up with those students. So we are doing our part, and we are playing our part, and we have Magic Lab program is still functional. We have students training, and for us, it's to create like an institution because we understand the importance, of exporting culture, and we understand the importance of,
Yeah.
doing it here. Because another advantage to that is even looking at it from a business point of view, when you get outsourced, jobs, it means cheaper, cheaper production, right? Production budget, right? So you're looking at that, it goes a long way to see why it's important to build the industry here, because it also helps the country economically, and it also helps provide jobs.
Yeah.
right? So what we are doing is to try to institutionalize, the studio, to have this magic lab, institution where people can come and train and, learn, and then they can get, if they are good enough, they can get hired by the studio and all that stuff. So we're doing that already, reaching out to schools within and outside Lagos. So I think Magic Carpet is really the future.
No, definitely. You're making a big impact, and it like I said, it goes so much deeper because you can have all the teachers, all the equipment and everything like that, but you still have to, like, again, like what we were talking about, before
Yeah,
the show, just all the stuff that, like I said, we take for granted over here, just energy issues, power issues, whether it's equipment issues and things like that. Just have to have all that stuff in place as far as really making it a viable industry that got the potential to grow. It's got the freedom to grow, and getting that straight before you know you do have that ability. Even if it's whether the government starts getting involved as far as putting incentives in place to help it grow. I mean, you need all these things that are going to give it water to grow, in order for the industry to really grow.
yeah,
Because we all know that there's talent there. There's so super talented creators there that are creating some amazing stories. But like you were saying, give us the opportunity to make this grow and give us the seed, the water to help this grow, um, type of thing.
yeah,
And
yeah.
we're getting ready to, again, for everybody who's just jumping in. We were having an amazing conversation, with my friend, Chekwube here from, Lagos. And we're getting ready to take a look at, the demo reel, and just some of the great work. And I want to kind of, after that, dive into, a little bit of the history, or the thought process, origin process of some of the animations that you worked on, especially SIP. Like I said, I was watching that when it, was posted on social media, and it really kind of, caught my eye and attention there. So let's take a quick look, at some of, Magic Carpet's work.
Perched upon a hill in Africa, seated between the past and the future, lies a universe bound with magic and wonder. A land overflowing with palpable dreams. The sleeping giant rises from her slumber and awakens the rest of the world with her. It is on this soil that legends are made, heroes are born, and villains are vanquished. And now, the tale of a continent thought to be buried in the dust emerges as a phoenix from the ashes. A continent whose time has come. This is the story of a new Africa. From Africa to the world.
Some amazing, amazing work. And I love how you, did it and everything. When it comes to Magic Carpet, like I said, what are some of the stories and animations that you're hoping to bring forward? And again, um, while you're telling them from an African perspective, story wise, what are some of the stories that you're hoping to tell? Is it Afrofuturism, sci-fi? What are some of the stories that you're kind of looking to kind
Okay.
of dive into and really bring out?
Okay, so the way the studio is divided, we have, the 3D division, we have the 2D traditional division, and we also have the cutout division, right? We just, finished with we had this partnership with one big studio, and we just are not allowed to disclose that yet until it's released. In terms of story, we started by looking at our culture. We started looking at literature, African literature, and that's what led to the Passport of Mallam Ilia, which is an adaptation by Cyprian Ekwensi. It was important to go back, so come from a familiar place that everyone can see, everybody on a book that everybody has read, and then we start from there. So Passport of Mallam Ilia is one of our first, project. It's still in production. It's a 2D feature film. Trust me, the quality is and the story is so different and beautiful. I think this is very indigenous and very very beautiful. I think for those that have seen snippets of it, right? So the Passport of Mallam Ilia is one of our projects, and then we have Meet the Igwes is a sitcom, more like the Family Matters. We all watch, right? So it has this whole, family that grew up in Lagos, Nigeria, and the whole situation and drama that happens there. It's a beautiful cutout animation, that pictures the life of Lagos, from a 7-year-old kid, who happens to grow up in this family that, they're not so privileged. So it's a really beautiful story. And then he got a scholarship, to study uptown. The way the city is built like this Maslow hierarchy of needs, where the richer people stay at the top. So he had the opportunity to go study there, and have to face the daily drama, coming downtown, where his family resides. So that's a really beautiful story that it's a 12-part series, and we are halfway in production already. Hopefully we release by next year, the first series. And then we have one more in our 3D pipeline. It's called The Legend of Bulan. And in that, it's an Afro fantasy where we'll be exploring African legend, myth, and folklore. And this is African reimagined, bringing back all those childhood stories and legend that we celebrated, and reimagining them in a different light, where we have emperors, empires, and we're seeing how we can collaborate with other countries too, and bring in writers from South Africa, writers from Mali and everything, and bring them all together in one room, and give them the opportunity to tell their story and write their own part, and be part of that writers room, to contribute. And then we put that out there, and trust me, it's just going to be the next Avengers and the next
Yeah.
beautiful series that come out from here. So that's one is pretty much in development process. We released a teaser early this month. It should be on our Instagram, right? So you can just check it out. It's called Legend of Bulan. You can also check it on YouTube, right? So trust me, it's really beautiful. So in terms of story, for us, it's about there's so many stories you can tell. Passport of Amelia doesn't even feel like an animation. Like
Yeah.
if you read the book, it doesn't feel like the animation. It feels like let's say Breadwinner. The way Breadwinner doesn't really feel like animation, but however, Cartoon Saloon was able to do an adaptation of that,
Yeah.
right? But looking at Passport of Amelia, what really stood out for us was you know, the pre-colonial times was really explored in that book, and how, one man love for his wife led him to, this vengeance mission whereby he had to find himself. He thought he was, really going for the bad guy, but he realized all this while that, he had this other dark side that he needs to really, really, really tap into. And for me, that is where African storytelling comes to play, because most times our stories is always about the cause and the effect. If you look at most African oral storytelling, it's short, and then the bottom line is always tied around cause and effect, not really a happy ever after or a happy ending. It's always
Yeah.
about cause and effect. And you see that two sides of the coin in our storytelling most times. It's like yin and yang, right? Even with Seep, right? You have this part where the character went into this wardrobe and it all becomes dark, and we change it to a 2D style, where he was shouting, "Somebody help me!" And then we have that, monster, coffee monster chasing him and everything. The story wasn't really about coffee. Coffee was just used as a metaphor,
Metaphor.
to talk about addiction and, that thing that you hold on to, when that you believe that can give you the best results, but, the best results can really come from your imagination and, your discipline as well. So at the end of it, they end up conquering that. And you see that reflecting in all our storytelling, most of our storytelling,
Yeah.
that switch in transition. Because in as much as there's the bright side, there's also that dark side. And you just have to, find a way to balance it.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, and I think you made a great point in that, you know, everything doesn't always work out and have that, like you said, kind of happy ending, which, some people that may be, like I said, the what they want to see. Other people, like I said, kind of want a more grittier, real life kind of reaction to things as opposed to, which is why, every company has their style. Obviously, Disney's style is happily ever after. That's their thing. They're wanting kind of a happy resolution to all their movies. But like, oh, we lost. Oh, I hope his power didn't go off. I told him hopefully he'll hope I don't know if Chekwube is hearing this, but let me jump over here real quick. Uh, hopefully he'll jump back on. That was like I said, we had that kind of talk about just their issue with rolling power and just a limited amount of power. So hopefully, like I said, I told him I was gonna try and keep this mindful that we get through this. Let me quickly message him just to let him know. Hopefully, I'm pretty sure he sees it that he fell out. But uh, like you said, you saw his work, and I think and hopefully you guys will chime in as well. I know I'm glad we at least got a chance to see his work and everything like that. Veronica, I appreciate you jumping in. Yes, it is very cool work. Amanda, very nice work for sure. And the voiceover was good too as well. But I do hope that everybody kind of jumps in and comments because it was something that we had the conversation before the show about as far as uh, just, I guess, the style of, the story that you're trying to tell. And, for me, like I said, while I love all styles of animations, from the happily ever after Disney to the more, gritty it doesn't always work out type of thing. I think that's for me a true representation of just all kinds of stories. Sometimes things don't work out and aren't always happily ever after, but you can still pull something of value from there. I want to make sure I do jump on here and message him because hopefully he'll be able to log back on because, like I said, like he mentioned earlier, that is kind of a concern that they are limited. Which we were talking about, but the lights are out. Yeah, we were talking about before the show is the things that we take for granted are things that they have to navigate and work through. And he was talking about sometimes there's only 4 hours of power that they get. So how do you complete something of this magnitude or get work done when you have to worry about power outages every 4 hours and you only get 4 hours to do something? So that's one thing I really do hope, especially people over here, um, understand and kind of really grasp onto is helping, not only just going over there to get stories, but really going over there in other parts of the world that just are having to deal with these kind of things, like I said, that we take for granted here, and helping to build the infrastructure that will allow them and give them the tools that will allow them to be the great creators that they are. So, while it's great, and amazing that Disney is going over there partnering and doing, and not just Disney, but all the other Netflix and all the other companies are going over there, partnering, bringing stories out. I hope they're really putting in place, things and investing in the country and not just taking out of the country. That's my wish and my hope, is that they're putting and investing things into the country that's going to allow them to fish themselves, and not just give them a fish as far as, okay, we're going to give you the opportunity of creating your stories, but helping them to build studios, helping them to get equipment, helping them to work within the government to get steady power. Just something as simple as steady power. And like I said, I would love to, hear your thoughts on it, because I think about this, especially as I have more creators of color, or more creators that are from Africa and other parts of the world, hearing the things and the challenges that, again, like I said, we just don't kind of tend to think about, because we flip on a switch and we just expect the power to be on, come on, and stay on. You know, so I'm always amazed at just the work, the quality of work that comes out, knowing just the things that aren't accessible to them. That, again, we kind of tend to take for granted. Veronica, yes, diversity in the industry definitely goes beyond just checking a box. It's about making our industry accessible to people from all over. And again, I don't think you can do that without putting into whatever ever country or any content that you're actually going into. I see he's back, and we're going to pull him in a minute once he gets settled. Um, Doing. So that's my wish. While, like I said, I'm so glad that companies such as Disney, such as Netflix, such as all these other companies are doing. But I am mindful of the fact that, truly, because they are a business, for them, it is the bottom line is a dollar. So I am mindful of that. While you can have the altruism of bringing culture, bringing diversity, and this and that, I know that's just the nature of business. The nature of business is to make money. That's the bottom line. So I know that that's at the bottom line of whatever, all the things that they do. But my hope and my wish is that while you're doing that, put go over there, build schools, go over there and help train in a more fuller way the pipeline of creating movies, if that's what they want to do, or studios, if or film studios, if the thing is about building films, but giving the tool of being able to fish. Like, and I go back to that phrase: teach me how to fish. Don't just give me fish. I would rather you teach me how to fish, give me a fishing pole, and I can fish for myself and get the fish that I want. I think he's back. We're going to see if we can pull him back in, for sure. Let's see. There he is. uh, you're. Let me see. You're muted there. Guest has muted themselves. You're muted there, Chekwube. So you can unmute yourself, if you can. Uh, like I said, we knew this was gonna happen. like I was talking about, you said you could hear me as I was talking. That's
Yeah.
I think the big thing that you know is obviously is going to have to be addressed because you can have all the great animation, all the great projects coming out of there and studios there, but if the thing is you're having to do all of that within 4 hours or the time allotted for the energy is just insane. So I think that's like what I was saying before. My hope is that studios like Disney, Netflix, all the other ones that are coming over there and really starting to bring show the diversity there and bring the diversity to other parts of the world. I hope they're sewing into the country as taking that opportunity to sow into the country there as far as building schools, uh, helping to train others to teach our the skill and the process at a high level so that the industry over there is self-sustaining itself. You get what I mean? Or I hope I'm explaining it
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. Yeah. Sure. Sure.
So,
Yeah.
like I said, I'm encouraged as well. Like I said, I feel like obviously they have a long way to go, but I feel like they're doing their thing. Yeah, and Amanda, like I said, definitely the Caribbean's the same way. I understand that being from the Caribbean, there are definitely limitations on what fields you can pursue. Yes, Wayne Carnegie is a great example, which is why I hope the creatives over there that are, and you're doing it with magic carpet, the school magic carpet and your training, you know give back to the kids and the people, younger people there, the the skills, and I think about that as well too. I mean, we have this issue here in the states, which is why we have uh, neighborhoods that kind of fall to disarray because you have people that are successful and their thing is to move out and take their dollars out to wherever it is that they move into other areas and not, you know, bring the dollars back to help build up the neighborhood. That type of thing is what I'm hoping and I'm excited about. Like you said, creators such as Wayne Carnegie, who's from the Caribbean, that's even though he's in Canada working at major studios, he still gives back and teaches young kids in Caribbean the art of animation. So still giving back. And that's, like I said, exactly what you're doing um, with the training that you're doing. And so I hope other creators are doing that exact same thing as opposed to rushing out to once they, get into Disney or partner with Disney, rushing out and not looking back. You know, that's my
Yeah.
thought. To this
Yeah.
point for you, what, has been kind of your biggest learning lesson? I mean, through this whole process so far, what's been kind of your biggest learning lesson in animation in the industry as a whole?
Um, I think generally, I think animation is discipline, right? Animation takes a lot of discipline because it's that one form of art that has every element in it. It has music, it has art, visual art, it has painting, it has sound design, it has cinematography and everything. So with all that element, it's going to take time. So my biggest lesson so far so good is that the best things will take time to create, and eventually, when you give that time, you would see the fruits of that time. And animation is internal in such a way that it's it will always be there. And with that, you can actually, help the younger generation build them and give them something to reference to or point at and say, okay, if Magic Carpet Studio is able to do it, I think I have hope as well. And for me, it's more patient capital. I've worked with several, talents that might not have that staying power. Just see the workload because we don't have like a huge team like of 200 or so,
Yeah.
right, to work with. So we just have to work with what we have. So with that, we are learning, through that tough process and in creativity, staying through it and understanding that it takes time, love, and patience, right? And understanding that it's everywhere in everything. Even if you're going to be sculpting the Sphinx or creating the pyramids of Egypt, it's still going to take time,
It's gonna take a long
right?
time.
So
If
the
you're
best,
building the pyramids, it's gonna take a long time.
yep, yep.
Oh man.
So if you're going to make great art that's going to last forever,
Yeah.
and everybody's going to see, years from now, that's going to outlive you. Definitely, it should take time.
Yeah, yeah, and that's some amazing, amazing advice. I always like to drop bombs on good pieces of advice that I hope people pick up on. For sure, definitely, Miss Amanda, like you were saying, Wayne. I'm I'm glad to reach out to Wayne to have him back on the show. Like you said, that is a great topic to talk about. As far as like I said, just when you're coming from another country or another continent, oh, his power went out again. Again, like I said, it's a tough thing. I can't imagine. He's back, but I can't imagine myself. And I was we were joking about this, which is we were joking, but it's not a joke. But we were joking about it. I'd be climbing up the wall. Just imagine you, Amanda, having to worry about your power going on and off, or you only have 4 hours of power to get your work done. Imagine editing and doing visual effects with under those circumstances. I'd be ready to shoot somebody. Really, I really would. So, so that's I hope the driving point that I hope people get as they reach out. Like I said, they really are talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI, and really bringing these diverse stories, and again, this is a topic that, and I'm trying to get him on the show because he made a great point. The speaker at Afro Animation, um, of just about equity and how we're kind of confusing that with economic power and money and the structure of how, is that a level kind of, are you really on an equal level when you aren't in, you know, economic on an economic playing field. And that's something, like I said, I'm working to get him on the show because that was a great kind of thought that I always think about when I hear the term equity. It's more about money and equity power and the resources that we have available, for sure. But definitely appreciate that for sure. But I want you to, and you can comment, Amanda, on that. Like I said, if you had to work under those kind of conditions, how you would really feel about that, type of thing. Because, like I said, I know if it was me, I'd be ready to, like I said, go on a shooting spree. So, it's not funny, but it's something that, like I said, I think we over here kind of just take for granted for sure. Um, as uh, and she obviously wonderful job, Chekwube, Amanda, thanks for sure. But yeah, those are, like I said, it's I'm always encouraged, because I definitely feel like that's something that um, I've seen from the creators there. They're really looking to give back to younger creators and really build the continent, the industry in the continent. Because, like you said, you know that you've got amazing stories there to tell, and it's more authentic when it comes to from your point of view, for sure. Are you seeing, when you're going out to speak and talk to different groups and younger? generations of kids. What's the sentiment that you're picking up within the continent and outside of the continent? I mean, what are some of the questions that you're getting asked when you go to speak? Um, Say, like I said, inside the continent versus outside.
Yeah, so I think the feedback has been, has been good. Everyone, you know, they kind of look up to what we create and, wondering, how we did that. And, sometimes some of them are just, blown away that this can be done here in Nigeria. And it's very, very hard to believe. Last year when we went to France, Annecy, for the Annecy event, we had a stand. We were like the only African studio that had a stand in Annecy, and most of the people that passed, saw our works and questioning, is this an African? Where are you guys from? We said Nigeria. I say, oh, really? You guys create animation there, right? So within
Wow,
within and
y'all really
outside,
did. Y'all
right?
did the work
Within,
there. And to
yeah.
that, do you
So
feel like that's a misconception with a lot of people that, and kind of the fallback that, yeah, you may have stories, but do you have, like I said, the resources do you feel like that's the handicap that you don't have the kind of resources and infrastructure to really give to studios, even though you know the talent's there and that? Do you feel like that's kind of the sticking point for some companies doing or
yeah.
doing work with companies that are there in the continent?
Yeah, not really. I think we've had a smooth ride, right, doing outsourced projects. In fact, we deliver in record time and we deliver beyond expectations most of the times. So, everyone is always surprised. People are always surprised because we are overactive and we really, really keep to timelines, right? So, having that feedback, do you guys really do animation in Nigeria? you know there's been so many news lately about what's been going on in the country, and there might be a misconception and a perspective of what the country might be, but we have creatives here and people that really really want to make this work. We have people that would celebrate, you would be celebrating in the future, right? So in terms of works, we have proven ourselves several times, even with bigger studios, bigger companies. I don't want to mention names
Yeah, yeah,
until some projects are released, right? So an extent, it's funny for me because I asked myself the question, how is this even possible? And they asked that same question of how you guys able to pull up such brilliant work in such a limited amount of time. But it's just work ethic. So
yeah.
more like we're animating for our lives, pretty much.
Like Don said beforehand, make sure we plan all this out before we sit down so we can take advantage of this time. So we take advantage of this time. But again, I think
Yeah.
that shows the resilience and just the creativity and how you can, like I said, put out the work that you do under such constraints that normally, again, we don't think about. So that goes a long way in that respect for sure. Let me see. I wanted to throw this up, Miss Amanda. Oh yeah, I know how it is, Don. Same thing in Jamaica. She just came back from Jamaica in February. It's an eye opener and really kind of different kind of life. And like I said, we tend to take these things for granted. Being a creator in other areas is just you have to be creative. That's that's the nature of it. You have to kind of be creative about how you're getting things done, for sure. Um, I'm gonna make sure. And again, everybody, just jumping on. Let me see, Amanda. She experienced losing power and water when she's back home, so I take nothing for granted here. Yeah, like I said, and again, like I said, unless you're going, from here, or unless you're not from here and you go home, like I said, then like I said, you kind of take for granted, wow, I'm glad I'm here because, I got the things that I need to do what I need to do, but it gives you a better appreciation, I'm guessing, for what you do have. And that's why, like I said, my hope and my dream is that we help to build up so that everybody's got the opportunity, the resources to really, really create. What is it for you that you love most about animation? I mean, what is it?
Okay, so I honestly do not know. I don't think I can even have a proper response to that. But I know that I have this routine every night. Before I sleep, I must watch something, right? I must see something, on my phone, maybe stream. I must watch an animation, and most times, what I watch would be what I'm aspiring to do or to be like, and then I take it to my dream most of the times. And what I mean by take it to my dream is that sometimes I even leave it to play overnight, and so I kind of know, animation word for word
Yeah,
and everything. And I have like a list of you know classical animation and really great animation that I go back to watch and everything. And some way somehow subconsciously, I think my spirit has been able to pick up these details in my own way to give it my own adaptation as well, right?
yeah,
So I soak up these ideas. And Hayao Miyazaki has been a big inspiration as well, the creator of Spirited Away,
yeah, yeah.
right? I've
Yeah,
watched, yeah, I've watched every documentary of him, and how he runs his studio. And for me, it's really inspiring because he's almost like a philosopher, and we see that translated in his work. And that level of detail, to even a passerby, level of details to those little human expressions is what really make his work sophisticated and original, that people can connect, even if the story sometimes it's not in the arc that they understand, but you just see it and they just marvel, like, so is this how is it doing it, right? So I actually watch a lot of Miyazaki's work.
yeah,
And then I think another big inspiration is jazz music. Listen to high life, Fela, and then it helps too, right, when you're creating and everything. So yeah, animation for me, I don't think I have any other thing I'll be doing in my life if it's not this. And it's funny, it's funny how I didn't see this coming
yeah,
in the first place, right? I was just testing the waters, and
yeah.
then I
And now
found
you can't
myself here.
imagine yourself doing anything else other than animation.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm here
Okay.
for a long time. I think we might have this interview again, maybe when I have gray hair or something.
That's right. That's right. And I'll be alive. I know, so I'll be here. Hopefully, we'll have it way before I go. So we're definitely gonna have them back way before I go again for sure. Like I said, I am just always I was so, like I said, was just so impressed by the work, and so impressed with what you're doing. Like I said, I knew I had to have you on, and I can't thank you enough for being on this show, Chekwube. One, I can't thank you enough for connecting with me in the first place. And like I told you, and
Thanks.
I tell everybody, it's not about you being a guest on the show more than it is about us building a friendship. It goes beyond you being on the show. Everybody that I have on the show, I don't say I have guests. I say I have my friends on the show. So it's really about that. And you know, you're a part of the Color of Motion family, and the door of the Color of Motion is always open because I know great things, great projects are going to be coming out from Magic Carpet. So I'm definitely going to want to be able to get the interview you on the show for sure. I said,
Sure.
man, we're friends, man. We're friends. You got to come on the show before you go to Oprah. So I am just super excited. Like I said, I have so much fun and so much almost fatherly pride when I watch all my friends, you know, just excelling at the things that they're doing, because it makes me feel good. And I know that, hey, you know, we're friends. My friend did that, you know, my friend created that. You know, my friend, you know, did the visual effects in that movie. I like that. Things like that make me feel good. And I'm all about building a great friendship and great relationship. So again, I can't thank you enough for being on the show. I can't wait to have you back on, Chekwube. We're gonna have to, like I said, make sure
Thank you.
we're within peak time, peak times here. But hopefully, like I said, as time goes on and as things progress, that's something that is going to be addressed, because, like I said, just resources I know are a big issue, and something that nobody has to really lack of resources is something nobody really should be going through, regardless. So again,
Yeah.
man, I can't thank you enough. We're going to make sure that you
Thanks, man. Thanks for the opportunity.
definitely, for sure. Make sure that you connect and check out more Magic Carpet Studios and what Chukube and his team are doing. You can go to their Instagram channel, check out all their work, and you'll definitely see the great stuff that they're doing and the upcoming things that they're doing. All this information is going to be on the chat, on the show notes for sure. So make sure that you hop on over to the YouTube channel, check out the show. If you caught it late or just jumping in late, check out the show for sure and check out all the show notes. Get connected with them, and check out and support what they're doing because it is a great thing for sure. And trust me, the industry over there is exploding. And like I said, my hope and all my prayers are that as the content explodes from there, more of the infrastructure and the systems put in place to allow even more of that. So, super excited about that. And again, Truba, can't wait to have you back on the show, brother.
All
Everybody,
right.
please, if you could, for I'm going to say this loosely because you know the power, but if you could hang out in the green room for just a second, I won't try to keep you in long, because, like I said, I know the issue. But if you could hang out in the green room for a second while I close out the show, I do want to talk with you real quick. I'd appreciate it. If not, I understand. But if you could hang out in the green room, would you?
Okay.
Good deal.
Yeah, sure.
Everybody, please, again, help me thank my very special friend and guest, Chekwube Okonkwo, for being on the show. Thank you, brother, for being on the show. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thanks.
Hang out for just a second. Again, everybody, I hope you enjoyed this episode. Like I said, despite the technical issues, but again, that I hope that brings home the point of just the challenges that other creators have to go through. Amanda, like you said, you're from Jamaica. You fully understand when you go back home to a country that doesn't have the amount of resources and things that you have here. You're definitely keenly more aware of it. So with that, I hope, like I said, everybody kind of pulled something from this episode, got some sort of inspiration, some sort of appreciation if you're here over here in this country. Um, that we're really blessed when it comes to a lot of things. So this has been an amazing show for sure. One that, like I told you, I've been looking forward to for a long time. Chikube's such a fun guy, great guy for sure, and just so glad that had a chance to connect and meet with him. And can't wait to get him back on for sure. And just look out for Magic Carpet and the things that are coming out from Magic Carpet Studios, and not just Magic Carpet, but all the great studios over there. You're going to be amazed because I actually think, like I said, Disney's got their partnership with 10 creators over there. And I think later on this year or kind of end of this year, their anthology of 10, they partnered with 10 directors over there, and their anthology is going to be coming out. I forget the name of it. Kizaru Mata, I think. I may be messing it up, but go on to Disney. They'll, you'll find it there. But that's coming out, and you're going to see a lot of great content from a lot of great creators over there. So I'm so glad to be able to bring them on here and bring other creators on here as well. With that, like I said, this has been a great episode. So glad you tuned in and stayed with us. As long as you have, make sure if you did have to jump off or what, you can always go back and check out the full episode. It was an amazing one for sure. And next week is no exception. So looking forward to next week's guest. And it's going to be a 2-for-1. Chadrick and Jeremy, comic and pop culture podcast. They have a podcast where they talk about comics and pop culture called Fusion High. Some super funny guys. I met them last year. We all spoke on the panel, a panel of Black podcasters at Comic Palooza, and we just connected. I knew I had to have them on the show, so we're gonna have an amazing fun time next week. So make sure you tune in because it's gonna be another fun episode for sure. Again, Amanda, appreciate you for staying around, tuning in for sure. Everybody that's tuned in, I always, give mad love to the viewers because you're the ones that help keep me going for sure. So appreciate that. With that, I think we can close out this episode. This was a long one, 2 hours, close to 2 hours. So, but it was a good one, kind of that. But thank you for supporting the Color of Motion and us moving forward for sure. So with that, I think we can pretty much kind of close out this and call it a wrap there. I always forget to, because I always love this last kind of close out music there. So make sure that you tune in next week. Like I said, you saw who's coming on, Chadrick and Jeremy from Fusion High Podcast. It's going to be a great episode. I hope you have a great rest of the weekend, great Saturday, and I will see you next week, same bat time, same bat channel. Have a great one, everybody.